If there was any day in the entirety of this year that I kind of wish that I had decided to have a good sleep schedule, it was today. I am currently on my 25th hour with no sleep. Anything that I say in this commentary, I apologize if it sounds insane. That is just how I feel right now. I do not know what will happen. Wishfully, I will be saved by the broken bell. Welcome to Roya Rockwood at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. I'm your host, Roya Rockwood. And day one was a crazy day at the Wells Fargo Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Might as well get started with how the day began. So, when I woke up around 12:36, I decided to put on the TV. Taxi was on. Yes, of all things, Taxi. Anybody remember Taxi? I love Taxi. It's a good show. So I decided to, just put it on the computer as I always do for my work. Go on to Facebook, and then boom, I find out Debbie Wasserman Schultz decided to resign. Yeah, the pregame show episode, I think, was released literally right after, or hours after, Debbie had decided to resign from her post as chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee. So, obviously, that episode, in terms of specific details, has been deprecated. Just wanted to make sure that was put out of the way. According to what the articles have said, though, and what current reports say too, that apparently she'll be out. She'll be out of the committee on August 1. But what good would it be when who is debatably one of the utmost corrupt people in the current Democratic Party has hopped on the Rodham bandwagon, apparently? Okay. You just decided to rig the election. What are we gonna do? Rig the general now? She's not gonna have an easy time. She will not have an easy time. I am sure of it. In fact, what was actually kind of surprising was that the chairwoman role, or at least the role of the chair of the DNC, had been shifted 2 different times within 24 hours of each other. I think Baltimore's mayor ended up being the one to begin the convention around, 4:17, 4:20. Yeah, sometime around 4:20 in the PM. Yeah, when everybody's smoking weed in Pennsylvania. Do they even have recreational marijuana available there yet? I'd have to double check. I honestly don't have a ducking clue. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be on the general election question ballots, but I'd have to double check. I honestly haven't a clue. But aside from that, earlier today, Debbie had decided to do, I guess, some speeches at the convention. I guess, before breakfast and during breakfast and a little bit after. You'd be surprised. The Florida delegation, and bear in mind, this was Bernie supporters, this was Hillary supporters, and this was just those that are kind of down the middle, that don't really want to choose either or. They all hate Debbie's guts. You heard cheers at first, but they all turn into boos, and it's all because of that duck and email scandal, and especially knowing now that the emails were to basically rig the election in favor of Hillary Rodham, which I do believe is a political insult. Why has she not been arrested for federal level crimes of voter fraud and a whole bunch of other things? Election fraud, can I say corporate espionage as well? Because I guess some people were promised money and a whole bunch of other things. The list goes on and on. I can keep talking about this, but again, I'm roughly about 24 and a half hours awake. I don't know what the duck I could say right now. I don't want to go insane. This is not me at my worst. In 2014, there was an instance, because of how bad it was that summer, I was up for 35 hours. So I hope that doesn't have to happen here. I mean, heck, I'm going to be up for 31 hours anyway because of editing issues, so don't even get me started. What else does it say on my footnotes? Yes. Yeah, simply put, because of this email scandal, Debbie Wasserman Schultz might as well be public enemy number 1 now. You know, at first Hillary was public enemy number one. Now it's Debbie, and then like Amy Aki or whatever the CEO's name is, along with a whole bunch of other people. It just gets worse and it gets worse. And WikiLeaks has more emails, apparently. Not just including the 19,252 emails that came out on Friday and Saturday. No, not just that. There's more coming. We don't know when it'll come. It could come as early as, I don't know, maybe by the time this episode's uploaded. Maybe by the time Thursday comes. We don't have a duck and clue. But Julian Assange has basically said that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming. Get ready for it. But still, because of all of this, I feel that the entire Democratic Party, no matter who you are, whether you support Hillary Rodham, whether you're Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or, I don't know, you're a very dark insider of the committee, I do feel that because of scandals such as this, that everybody has a bounty on their heads. I can understand why the Dem Exit or Dexit campaign has become a reality, where people are leaving the Democratic Party before it turns into total chaos. And I think come tomorrow, it could potentially become total chaos. We'll see what happens, though. What could be more of total chaos was... Now, Al Gore, and I'm surprised that it took him this long to endorse Hillary Rodham. Now, I don't know exactly Al Gore's relation with Hillary throughout the entirety of Bill Clinton's presidency. I don't know what their business is with each other. But, of course, as we know, Hillary has had strong support for fossil fuel and oil industries. She has had, I guess, some kind of negative effect with coal miners, especially the reason why Bernie ended up winning West Virginia in the first place, and also, I guess, kind of borderline in Kentucky. And also, of course, she supports fracking. All of these things, and bear in mind, Al Gore has been a strong promoter of the issues regarding global warming, climate change of all forms, and how it is negatively affecting the environment. Al Gore's endorsement is a contradiction to every single thing that makes up the Rodham campaign. So wishfully, with the current platform that has been set up at the committee, and also at the convention, wishfully, Hillary will not have to be subjected to this later on if she is the nominee. Again, this is day one aftermath. This is literally right after the late show ended at 1 a.m. It's 1:22 right now. So all of this is technically news. Now, at first, however, I'll be truthful. Al Gore, he basically had held off the endorsement until like maybe sometime around the late afternoon of today, which was kind of a surprise, much to my shock and surprise, especially because he's not at the convention. Actually, Bill Clinton was there tonight. You can see, if you saw the CBS primetime special, you can see a lot of cutaways of Bill Clinton, but Al actually has a lot of obligations that he's handling right now in the state of Tennessee. We don't know exactly what those obligations are, but I'm sure it's probably just matters discussing global warming and climate change. Maybe, I don't know, the 10th anniversary of An Inconvenient Truth. Do any of you remember An Inconvenient Truth? I found out about that book through means of, and I still have the disc. I still have the disc today. The first film in the... Remember when Futurama got canceled after 4 seasons, and then they ended up getting like 4 direct-to-DVD movies? So I ended up getting Bender's Big Score as a Christmas present in 2007. This was December of 2007. I watched the film, and then I watched all the extra stuff, and then I saw Al Gore, and I'm like, holy crap, Al Gore, he's back. He's back and talking about global warming. That's how I found out about An Inconvenient Truth. I've never actually read the book. Much to my shock and surprise, I've never actually gone out of my way to get the book. But from what I know, and from any speech I've seen from Al Gore over the years, it is clear that, yes, We need to figure out ways to deliver cleaner energy and cleaner air for everybody. Have solar panels installed on virtually every single house out there. Every house and building, no matter what it is. Heck, even have the schools and prisons with solar panels. Let's switch from oil heating and gas heating, which can cause natural explosions, especially gas, and switch directly to electric. Let's make it so that our infrastructure is the best infrastructure we've ever seen. You know, because I'm sure that having all of these kind of things being put into play, having every house with solar panels, switching all the heating in every building and domestic area, even private property, to electric heating, I would not be surprised as to how many millions of jobs that would create. We would probably create 25 million jobs, more than the 13 million that Bernie Sanders has estimated within a 10-year span, mind you. That can be all possible, but we'll have to see. We'll definitely have to see. So, now we have a rally that happened around, like, I'd say maybe 1:17 in the PM, maybe a little bit before that. So, of course, Bernie had basically talked to his delegates about his intentions and his plans for the later portions of the night, and unfortunately, what ended up happening was he basically said what a lot of people didn't want to hear, that they wanted to have Hillary Rodham be elected for president. I'm sure that a good amount of people feel that Bernie has betrayed them, but of course, I'll talk about that later on. But the fact that when he mentioned Hillary Rodham and started complimenting about her, the entirety of his delegates, 1,846 delegates, booed him in that room. That's insanity. That's insanity, but that is the reality of how much people support the guy. Again, there is a reason why the independent from Vermont has the reputation that he does. To see him booed like this, I'll be truthful. It is a sad shame, but at the same time, it's understandable, given his history with this campaign, and also because the game is still very close, very, very close. It's only about 13 to 15 million and change, not including caucuses. Bernie probably has more votes by comparison if you match up caucuses, and I think he's won more counties by comparison. I mean, Duck, did you see New York? But I digress. On to the next topic. Now, we had a late opening for the convention. There's no two ways about that. But before the mayor of Baltimore Baltimore, Maryland, mind you, before the mayor of Baltimore, Maryland had decided to basically say that the convention is open and ready, we had this big church choir, I am assuming. And what they, I don't mind this kind of music if I were in a church. The downside is you're doing this at a convention that is supposed to have separation of church and state. Let me be absolutely clear. If I were to hold a convention, I would not have it be a ducking megachurch. That's not what this convention is supposed to be about. No, you do not bring in a church choir to sing church hymns based on one specific religion. It already showed me that yes, there was a Christian bias in this convention, whether or not it was Protestant or Catholic, Seventh-day Adventist or Lutheran or any kind of other religion that is a part of the Christianity sub-region, so to speak. Again. let's just stick to copyright songs. Let's just stick to copyright and public domain songs. That was just too much. That was just too much for me. Way, way, way too much. I mean, heck. I didn't want it to. I did not want my convention to feel as if Joel Osteen was the host. And bear in mind, I don't really have too much of a negative view of Joel Osteen, but I don't like having to watch megachurch footage on TV, regular TV. I mean, that's what analog TV channels in the 60X number region is for nowadays. And as far as I'm aware, didn't Joel Osteen also endorse Donald? That's what I've been hearing. Whether or not that's true, I'd have to double check my sources, but that's what I'm aware of. For all that I know, I'd have to double check that. But still, conventions need to be religiously free. It doesn't matter who or what you are, but any convention, no matter what it be, whether it's the Democratic, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Green Rainbow, Purple Party, United Independent Party, or even the Royan Party for that matter, my own personal Royan Party of 2003, none of it deserves to have to be with a religious bias. Make it religiously free, we're good. We're good. Next topic. So, not even a good amount of minutes in, and a whole bunch of the Afro-American members of the DNC, they basically decided to deliver their quote-unquote sincere apologies to Bernie Sanders and his campaign, as well as his delegates, for the whole email scandal. Whether or not I can believe them is well beyond me. I am truly unsure. I cannot say. It felt like a kind of a double positive or double negative, or maybe a positive negative, a dual-bladed sword, mind you. I didn't know whether or not to believe it, so I currently am saying that apology, in my view, is more of a 50-50. But hey, an apology's better than nothing. If they did not do that, I think that the Democratic Party would have been more in shambles than it already is right now. Again, it's on life support. It's on life support. There's nothing they can truly do right now. Can they? Well, aside from electing Bernie as the nominee, I think that's the only thing that we truly have going for us. Actually, one of the things that Bernie had mentioned later on, and we'll get to this, is actually the matter regarding the roll call. Because at the end of Bernie's pre-game show rally before the beginning of the opening of the convention, Jane O'Meara Sanders, Bernie's wife, had basically come to him. She had walked up to him and had basically said, "They don't know you're up on the nomination. That's the real concern." But what that basically means is, of course, again, the roll call. So yes, people will vote for Bernie at the roll call. Please remember, Hillary Rodham only has, far as the records say, 2,202 pledged delegates. Remember, anything can happen. Anything can happen, because bear in mind, neither of the candidates have the necessary 2,383 pledged delegates necessary for victory. The superdelegates, the unpledged superdelegates, could vote however the duck they want. Because from what we're seeing, Bernie is still beating Donald Trump by about, I'm going to say 12, 13, 14, 15, 19% in some polls. You'd be ducking surprised. While, of course, as you know, it's either a deadlock with Donald and Hillary, or Hillary and Donald, whatever order. And in some cases, Donald exceeds Hillary by about 5 to 9%. 3 to 9%. But with a 2 to 6% margin of error, depending on the poll, especially ones conducted by Fox News, which often have a far right-wing bias. But still, I think it would be a fatal mistake if the superdelegates did not decide to vote for Bernie in this case. It's too much. It is too dangerous right now to have a controversial outcome for what we would be seeing if campaign 2016 goes on without Bernie as the nominee. It's either that or Bernie must run on the green ticket, and if he doesn't, then we have to get Jill Stein in the debates. There's no two ways about it. There's just no two ways about it. Heck, why not get Gary Johnson while we're at it? Sure, I'm sure that there's a good amount of reasons why people don't want Gary Johnson either, but at least he's better than nothing. He's better than nothing. Plus, we get to hear a little bit more of former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld. Bear in mind, I did not really grow up during the Bill Weld era. I don't know much about former Governor Bill Weld. All I know is that he was a Massachusetts governor. He has a decent voice. He aged a bit. That's all I can say right now. That's all I can say right now. Astrologically, though, I get along with him, so I guess that's a positive. I guess it is. Now, apparently, Google had a lot of odd things going on when it came to Google searches by region. Like, depending on the state you were in, like in a whole bunch of states, you could see like around 8 p.m. The Bachelorette, for some reason, was high in search count. Alongside that, booing was high in the search count. That shocked me. I don't expect booing to be something that would be high up in the polls, but I guess it's something high up in the polls. It's not a bad thing, but it's just something that I felt needed to be pointed out. Nobody ever expects that one single bit. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But if I had to say, the booing of Debbie and Hillary during the convention indeed shows that, yes, there is a massive divide in the party. And it will only get worse as the days go on, especially in the aftermath of day 2. You'll see how everything goes down. If everything doesn't go our way, if everything doesn't go in the way of the Bernie delegates, you're gonna see a lot of crazy stuff after the end of the first ballot. Now, this is just a side note, I guess, but, it caught my mind, so I thought, hey, why not talk about it? So, CBS's former Face the Nation host, Bob Schieffer, here's basically what is anticipated by him. He is expecting that if Bernie supporters and delegates are unable for Bernie to be the nominee, if the shocking twist of fate happens in which Bernie ends up becoming the nominee by a 5 million to 1 ratio outcome, that could still potentially happen. We don't know how the superdelegates will vote, but if it were to happen, then of course things would be dynamically different for the race. But if it weren't to happen, if Hillary ends up the nominee anyway, remember, there is currently a major write-in campaign by hardcore Bernie supporters, those that have known him 30, 40, 50 years, including as well the newcomers that have only known him for about, a few years, maybe half a decade or even a full decade for that matter. If this write-in campaign gets enough support, they are estimating that at least 20 million people will vote for Bernie in the general election. Bear in mind, if Bernie were to be written in, if Hillary were the nominee on the Democratic side, and win, this would mean that Bernie would make an unprecedented this would be one of the most unprecedented of elections, because we've never had a write-in president, to our knowledge, right? That would be rather astounding. I would be shocked if that happened, but it would make total sense. Totally would make very vital sense. I would not question that one single bit. And bear in mind, this means that Bob Schieffer views that a third-party outcome could change up the entire thing. Remember, at the end of the Republican National Convention, searches for third-party candidacy rose over 1,150% by Friday. By the time Friday came, 1,150%. That is also very unprecedented. in Google history, because Google searches were increasing up the wazoo. Same thing happened with Bing, with DuckDuckGo, with Yahoo, which is currently now bought by Verizon for $4.8 billion, by the way. Nice catch, Verizon. Remember when they used to be owned by SBC and then AT&T? Now it's Verizon Yahoo. I wonder if they still have dial-up. I still have my old dial-up devices, that's why I say that. What else? MSN, Ask Jeeves. Yes, I still call it Ask Jeeves, even though it's just Ask now. I prefer Ask Jeeves. Jeeves always made it better. But yeah, but still. Now bear in mind, also, now this was said by Bernie back in 1990, 1991. He said that if a major change were to come into politics in the way that federal government is handled by the people or by those elected in office, he said that the truest of outcome would come from a third-party candidate. And bear in mind, this comes from somebody who has beaten a Democrat. I think this was when he was running for the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. Yeah, when he won in Burlington, Vermont. I think he defeated the Democrat at the time. And he ran as a Democrat in order to get the support from people that he knew that he would necessarily have to get support from, as well as the fact that his message could only truly be heard if he were on the Democratic ticket. If he ran as an independent, nobody would hear about him. That was one of the smartest moves that he made, even though the Democratic Party betrayed him throughout the whole ducking thing, from as early as March of 15, even before he entered the race, which is a shame. But as I said, again, this could all come down, this general election could come down to those that write in Bernie Sanders. It could come down to those who vote for Jill Stein. It could go down to those who vote for Gary Johnson and former Governor Bill Weld on the Libertarian ticket. We don't know how everything will turn out. But if the third-party candidates are able to change the outcome dynamically with so much support that both Hillary and Donald are basically left in the dust, we could potentially see one of 5 different outcomes here. 3 of them only being the majorly important ones, 2 of them being the ones worth talking about. And in this case, either being Bernie being written in, or Jill becoming the first Green Party president that we've ever seen. We don't know how it will all turn out, but I do believe that if third-party support becomes more and more of the talk and more in the main spotlight, we could potentially see that happen. So yes, I do agree with Bob Schieffer on this. It's all the balls up in the field, balls up in center field, it's high in the air, but it's not going to be a home run. Will you catch the ball? And then we later go into a topic that I'm really glad is being discussed at the convention: mental health, starring Demi Lovato. So yes, of course, as I mentioned, we had a lot of celebrities show up. We had Demi Lovato, and in her case, she had discussed her history of mental health, because I think she suffers from bipolar disorder, if my memory serves correctly. And of course, she ended up getting some rather good therapy from some rather good doctors and nurses and other assistants and therapists. Whenever she goes touring, according to her, she assures that, her fans, if they ever need this kind of help, that she has these kind of people on board as crew members. So like, if you ever, you're having a breakdown, or if, you kind of feeling like you're going to lash out or whatever, these guys are people that you can come to. And that's something I wholeheartedly appreciate. We need more people such as Demi Lovato having these kind of people whenever they go touring, to assure that, their fans are completely okay and, mentally okay. Mentally okay, and, in a decent balance. And bear in mind, this comes from somebody that has suffered from mental health issues myself, involuntarily, mind you. because as I've stated before, I was a victim of emotional depression from October of 1998 going as far as June 30 of 2013. No, not June 20. June 30 of 2013. My apologies. I don't know if I said 20 or 30 at first. If I just repeated myself a second time, I wholeheartedly apologize. I really don't like redundancy. But, even nowadays, I still have some minor episodes where, I might break down if something happens. But it's nothing too over the top as what happened with me many years ago. And, I don't think my depression would have been as bad had I not been wrongfully prescribed both Advair and Singulair. And I want people to know about this. Advair and Singulair were made as a form of... They were originally meant to be remedies for those that suffer from asthma. And in my case, I had them. I had the required dose. But there was one time in August of 2005, I don't remember exactly when in August of 2005, but there was an instance where it was June of 2005, my apologies. It was June of 2005, in which the tablets of Singulair, mind you, were strawberry flavored. Could you blame me for taking 14 tablets all at once? I'm surprised that the overdose didn't actually negatively affect my body, except it kind of did to my brain a bit, because that's the only reason why, I had a lot of breakdowns in school. You could see me, burst out and crying. It was kind of like pseudobulbar affect, kind of, because pseudobulbar affect is when you would randomly break down or randomly laugh. I never had the laughing. I only had crying. That, alongside with my emotional depression, kind of did a lot of bad for me in my times. I had even threatened suicide a few times, but I never actually did it. Of course, I was mentally sane enough to know that I would not actually do that to myself. I wouldn't actually hurt myself in any way, shape, or form, nor would I ever hurt anybody else, even if I were provoked. Trust me, my sanity is far better than it used to be. I'm not the same person that I used to be many, many years ago. Over a decade ago. And, the fact that I had suffered from the side effects of Advair and Singulair for at least 8 years, maybe a little more than that, it does show that the doctors did not know what they were doing with me. And I feel horrible that I did not sue them for medical error. And that is actually one of the reasons why, even though, yes, I do believe we do need a major expansion in the amount of mental health clinics that we have in this nation, we need to be training our nurses and our doctors the right way. I've got a good amount of members in Royameadow & Company, tech members, that are now also CNAs, they are EMTs, they are also, registered nurses and nurses' assistants. Some are taking the full throttle to be doctors or even professors of health. What is a shame, however, in modern day is that, and I mentioned, I actually need to clarify something that I mentioned in the War on Death audio log, because I had originally said that when we lost Amber Mace, we originally assumed that it was probably complications from sleep apnea, because she was put into retirement in her sleep. But what actually happened was that doctors, I guess, had given her these odd prescription pills that she was not ever supposed to have, and I guess it caused her not just her blood pressure, but her pulse to just go completely out of whack, put her into AFib, and then I guess cardiac arrest happened a matter of hours later. So I wanted to apologize for that inaccuracy now that I now know all the facts. And something such as that was also medical error, which I am fortunate that the people at Pembroke Hospital will more than likely be served swift justice for, along with a whole bunch of other hospitals in the state of Massachusetts where this kind of stuff has happened. Medical error is the number 3 cause of physical loss of life in the U.S. I think over 263,000, maybe a little more or less than that. I'd have to double check the numbers. I'm speaking primarily for 2015 standards. But the fact that the number three cause of physical loss of life is medical error, it does show that a lot of people are being wrongfully trained, and the fact that these kind of crimes are of the federal level, it shows you we have a crisis. And the majority of those that are put into physical retirement because of medical error are mental health patients. So yes, I do believe that all doctors need to be retrained. Some of them need to be trained by military doctors who I believe military doctors do a better job with handling injuries and mental health patients alike than regular doctors that go to regular school for it. Is that a shame for me to say? Is that an insult for me to say? Whether or not you like it, that's how I feel. And yes, even though, yes, I do believe we do need more medical clinics, we need to know that our people are being trained the right way and that they are not causing medical errors that are of federal offense. That needs to change, and soon, or else we will see an epidemic of medical error becoming the number one cause of physical retirement in this nation. More than cancer and more than heart disease. But I will talk about this at a later point. The first anniversary of my official declaration on the war on death online is on August 30 or 31. So I'll get to that when the time is proper. I'm not going to do this now. So, next topic. Actually, how many minutes are we in? About 38 minutes. Okay, that's fine by me. That's fine by me. I need to find a way to make up for lost time. So, all right. So, one of the things that that made Bernie Sanders as popular as he did was because it was the fact that he's had a constant message for the past 50 years and change. He's never changed that message. He has been the same person for all this time. The only thing that has really changed about him is his visual approach, his facial features, his hair. That's it. And maybe parts of his voice, but he still sounds the same altogether. And, his impact, and, also the fact that he doesn't really change his wardrobe too much. Kind of like me. I don't really change my wardrobe too much. You're going to see me in a Milton's brand jacket with Lucky You brand jeans all the ducking time with a green fedora, with a regular green or emerald green fedora. I'm okay with that kind of design. I'm okay with being static in my attire because it shows to the people that this is what you'll always expect from me. And in the case of Bernie, that is what you always will expect from him. That's why he has rock star status. And that kind of impact is something that must always be acknowledged and praised. We won't have a lot of rock star status political candidates like Bernie Sanders. We might not see somebody like that for a good long while. Maybe not until 2032, in the event I choose to run. Who knows? But either way that I view it, with Bernie's views on how we must move the nation, how we must become similar to the rest of the mainstream world, giving everybody a decent living wage, delivering health care to all people as a right, making sure that our public colleges and universities are tuition free, and I'm sure that he also probably might have mentioned this at some point, delivering proper sex education in all of our schools, which is something I intend to do here in Lynn, Massachusetts if I run for mayor and win. I do believe that these are what we need in order to move this nation forward. And the fact that Bernie was able to get this message out to tens of millions of people around this entire nation, maybe even over 100, 200 million, I would not be surprised if we see another candidate such as him, maybe in campaign 2020 or 2024. I know that I would be a similar kind of candidate in 2032 because our mindsets are virtually the same. As I said before, in the isidewith.org or .com or .net or whatever the duck website it is, it's called I Side With. I did the entire survey. I did all the questions. And, I side with Bernie with at least 96, 97% of virtually every single view. And even though copyright was not mentioned on there, I actually do have a strong... Bernie and I actually have a really strong view in the regard of how we handle copyright, because as I said before, he was against Protect IP, he was against SOPA, he was against CISPA 1.0 and 2.0. I was against Protect IP, SOPA, CISPA, and CISPA 2.0. And as I've stated before, I think I said this in the pregame show. We need to implement copyleft law if we want to have content be freely available, whether it be for profit or non-profit, and if you're using another person's work, whether it be with or without a license. Because everybody literally just samples from somebody else. There's no two ways about that. So as a result, yes, I do believe the copyleft law needs to become the norm so that we don't have issues with content disputes and horrible copyright infringement matters, especially when it comes to localization standards for international content, especially when we bring anime or video games from Japan or even South Korea over to here in the States. And even Europe, why not? Or Australia. Well, the Oceanian countries usually get the fishy end of the stick. You know what I mean when I say fishy. But that's another story for another time. Definitely another story for another time. So then you have Jerry Springer. Yes! Jerry Springer! Jerry! I love Jerry Springer. I did not know for the longest time, I hope I have it right, 1977 he was the mayor in Cincinnati, Ohio. Looks like the people on the circuit board do not know what year he was mayor in Cincinnati, but yeah, he was mayor in the 70s, and I'm rather shocked. I did not know that he was a mayor in Cincinnati, Ohio. No wonder why his TV show from 1991 did so well. He was a politician. Politicians make good entertainers. Entertainers make good politicians. That's why Al Franken was a part of the convention today. Or tonight. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But now bear in mind, on the political forefront, now bear in mind, Jerry Springer has been a Democrat. He's always been a Democrat to my knowledge. Now, on a personal standpoint, he and Donald don't really have any kind of really negative view of each other. But, of course, Donald's views, Jerry says that they're heavily dated. And, I don't mind the fact that, yes, they are heavily dated. They're heavily dated in all the worst ways probable that, it kind of is bringing us back to what made the early to the late 1920s, like circa 1929 to 1934, as ridiculous as it was. And to be truthful, the issue that Jerry views, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, is the fact that when you have a candidate that has never had work in public office, even though yes, Donald Trump has had a lot of good and bad publicity in the spotlight. If you truly feel that you want to really run for office, especially if you intend to be president, you need to be somebody, even if you haven't held office, you need to do your homework. You need to do your homework good. Make sure you know every single necessary thing that you have to. Know what your other candidates don't know. Talk with other people that are in the political field and learn what they know. Learn what they have learned over the years. That is why people such as me could potentially run for office and win, even if we've never held public office before, because we know our fish, we know the troubles that are going on in our area, we know how to remedy these issues. And bear in mind, even though in my case I would be running for the mayor's office in Lynn, Massachusetts, the difference with me as opposed to, Patrick J. McManus Edward J. Chip Clancy, or even Judith Flanagan Kennedy, our current mayor. One thing, to my knowledge, that they have all failed to do, from my history and learning of what they've done in office up to now, is that these three mayors have not thought of Lynn on the federal level. And bear in mind, federal politics is my forte. To be a mayor, you have to think like a president. You have to know how, in order to protect a city, you would have to know how to protect a nation. And at the same time, when you want to think of how to improve your city, think of how you would improve the entirety of the United States as a whole. So in this case, this would mean investing more in our schools, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, firing people that have not been doing their jobs, assuring the Southeast and East Lynn don't have such a horrid imbalance, a $144,000 imbalance with the median family incomes that make up West Lynn, which is $100,000 to $162,000, to assure that we have strong federal level security in all of our schools, to assure that we're all well protected from cybercrime issues such as what happened when the Latham administration was so negligent with our identities and our intelligence, my own included, back in September and October of 2012, and a whole bunch of other matters, as well as criminal justice reform, so that we can assure that we don't have issues, racial issues, involving whenever a cop decides to arrest or shoot somebody. And a whole bunch of other matters I could bring up. Is it ridiculous to know that, I've had to focus on this for the past matter of years? It's not too much of a surprise, but I'm at least glad that I've done so up to now, and I've done it rather well. But it's not something that I take for granted, so I'm at least glad that I've done my homework, and to be truthful, I do take Jerry Springer's advice rather seriously. I do believe that if you intend to run for office, and you've never held public office before, even if you've never worked on a lower scale, you deserve to know every single thing that is at your disposal and what you need to have. Even make sure you have a cabinet prepared. That's why, in my case, I would be over-prepared for campaign 2017 if that were the case. But again, I'll discuss this more once it comes to that point. But again, if you do not study anything regarding whatever political field you're going into, if you want to make it more like a reality show as Donald has done, that is a fatal mistake for any campaign season that you could ever undergo. It's just way too crazy. Did my fan go off? Yeah, my fan went off. I'm going to have to turn that on. Ugh. No wonder why it's dry in here. Okay, back on. I love this fan. This is a, what is it? It's a Holmes brand fan. Get them. Trust me, they're fast, they're powerful, and they're lovely. Especially any model circa 2014 and 15. I can't believe how much more powerful they are in comparison to my old 2001 model window fan. It's rather astounding it even lives today. So with that said, let's go on to Al Franken. I mean, duck, I'm already about 50 minutes into this before editing. And I'll read it right off the bat, or I'll read it right off the notes. Without a doubt, Al Franken still has his comical sense of character in place full throttle. It's as if I was watching or in the audience of the roast of Donald Trump on Comedy Central all over again. He's still got the jokes, and he truly can deliver the crowd a show. I mean, if you saw his dry humor, the enthusiasm that he had, even though, yes, he was pretty much talking about Hillary all the while bashing Donald at the same time, the enthusiasm and the cheer that you got from him, as well as laughs, was probably just as powerful as Rudy Giuliani's speech at the Republican National Convention, which I still feel, why did you not really cover it as much, CBS? That was a fatal mistake on your part. Rudy Giuliani is still one of the higher notables in the Republican Party. Give him more love, even if you hate his guts. Come on, he's from New York. One of your main bases is in New York. Scott Pelley's Evening News is in New York. The Early Show is in New York. The Late Show is in New York. I can go on and on about this, but you get the point. Still, that's how it was not a gory hate speech. That's how you do real comedy. So I'm glad that Al Franken's still hanging around and still having a fun time. He is one of the better people of his era, and I hope he never leaves. Never at all. I'm surprised he became a senator, but he's still got the comedy in him. See, that's how you do it. If you're in politics, always make sure that entertainment comes first. That's why even if I were to hold office, I would still be making stuff on this channel. That is just how much I keep myself dedicated to being a content creator. I'm a content creator first before any other job. Even though, yes, I will pay close attention to anything if I were to be in a political office. But let's continue to Sarah Silverman. You know, Sarah Silverman, she is actually one of the hardcore Bernie fans from the get-go. And it is a shame, it is a ducking shame that she had to switch to Hillary in the way that she did. It was kind of like a big duck you to Bernie fans, especially when she said that, Bernie or bust supporters are out of their minds. This is one of the reasons why we will see a third-party movement if Hillary is the definitive nominee in later days. And it would be the fault of people such as Sarah Silverman. And bear in mind, I've always loved Sarah Silverman up to now, but she has concocted a war by accident. She has basically declared war on the entire Bernie-crat community. It's saddening, but I guess it's just kind of a way of the left-wing politics of our nation right now, isn't it? I'm still gonna watch Sarah Silverman, even though this happened. And let's go into the population. Because as we've stated before, it wasn't until day 4 that the Republican National Convention would be, rather kind of filled to the rim with people. Oh, and speaking of which, in terms of, how they have the balloons at the end of the convention? About 125,000 balloons, if CBS reported that right, had fallen from the sky, or at least from the top of the arena. I think that was actually kind of a record. I don't know if the Democratic National Convention has 125 or if they're going to go up to 150,000. But we'll see. We'll see how much they're going to shoot down. But still, that was a rather fun moment for everybody. That was actually something that I did not honestly expect. But, it's a good thing. It's a good and cool thing. But as for population, the Wells Fargo Arena was filled to the rim. It was filled to the rim of people. It didn't have an empty amount of 40 to 60% of no seats up in the second row. With the bleachers and the balcony. Because again, at the Republican convention, everybody was on the floor. There wasn't really anybody in the bleachers or the balcony. I mean, heck, during days 2 and 3, you could see empty seats everywhere. Day 1, empty seats everywhere. Day 1 of the Democratic convention, there was too much to lose. That's why everybody was there. If they knew it was a lost cause, then, it probably would have been very, very empty. But I'll be truthful, I would not be surprised if Bernie-crats don't get their way, then they probably might walk out if Hillary is accepting the nomination on day 4 in the event that happens. It's a possibility, but it could potentially happen if that were to occur. Remember, there is a Dexit campaign, the Demexit/Dexit campaign. So again, we could see anything happen. It's all up in the air right now. In other news, J.J. Abrams was one of the primary people to work on a Democratic National Committee promotional video for Michelle Obama's entrance. Something that you would probably not expect from a convention with an all-star cast. Oh, right, of course that makes sense. I'm going to withdraw that statement. I'll tell you this right now, that line was totally scripted. That entire line was totally scripted. It's all from my footnotes. But yeah, apparently the video that was presented before Michelle Obama decided to walk in, that was actually, that was the work of J.J. Abrams, which I'm not surprised about. You know, J.J. Abrams has been in the spotlight a lot lately, especially after his success with Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and I think with the new Star Trek reboots. So it's definitely, it's definitely nice to see that he is doing some rather high-profile editing for other things, such as Democratic National Convention. It's kind of something out of his alley, but, it's something still that's very well appreciated. I don't take that for granted, not one single bit. Oh, we're going into minute 58, apparently. Okay, so the show truly didn't really pick up until we hit the primetime special on CBS, and this was the 10 p.m. to 11:23 hour section, in which we got Michelle Obama, we got Joe Kennedy III, we got Elizabeth Warren, and we got Bernie Sanders. Marty Walsh actually spoke earlier in the night, and I guess he was just talking about the pride of Boston as well as his matters with alcoholism. Unfortunately, that wasn't really covered by CBS, so I didn't really get to see the entire speech. I guess we'll have to look that up at some point. Okay, but Michelle Obama, basically, if you remember anything from her speech in campaign 2008, then you know for a fact that Michelle Obama in this speech, I could say this was kind of more like a follow-up to it, the Mark II of this discussion, or the speech, and it basically involved the fate of the future. And what we mean by the future is the children of the world that we currently see today. This includes teenagers and even people in our 20s, early to mid-20s, that is Generation Z. And, Generation Z is what makes up the modern era of the world. And, if we do not have what we necessarily need in order to continue, where we have public colleges or universities tuition free, where younger people can make decent wages instead of peasant wages, as we've seen all across the board, where they have more opportunities to do the things that they can do best, where they could have proper sex education, where kids in junior and senior high can learn code right away, which is something I horribly despise about the fact that Lynn does not do easily. We don't have a lot of coding classes here. And there's just so much more that I could talk about regarding the future of Generation Z, but if we do not have the necessary resources or knowledge that we necessarily require, then we will be in a worse condition than we have ever been before. It's a shame that I have to say it that way, but it's true. It's true, and I know that a lot of you will agree with that. It's something I didn't want to have to discuss, but it's something that, we all have to discuss at some point in future time. It's better to talk about it now before it's too late. And then, of course, later on, even without talking about Donald Trump directly, even without naming him, Michelle was basically able to say, hey, the Republicans elected somebody that, they nominated somebody that has not done their homework. They've never held public office, they've got heavily unfavorable views based on multiple people. Why did you elect this guy? Why didn't you elect Jeb? Because I'm sorry, that makes me laugh every single ducking time whenever I say Jeb. I horribly apologize. It's just too much. Jeb Bush is debatably one of the best Bushes I can poke fun at. I don't poke fun at Herbert Walker Bush, and of course, because of Oil Field Tycoon and George W. Bush and Sonic the Hedgehog, yes, that will be a ROM hack. I originally thought of that back in 2008, but I never actually got around to it. Yeah, that's why I poke fun at Bush 43. But you get the point. You get the point. We need a candidate. If you really wanted to have a really good nominee on the Republican side, Republican Party, you would have chosen somebody that has obviously done the homework, that still has money in the bank for their budget, and a whole bunch of other things. You wouldn't have let yourselves all be played for fools. Trust me, Donald has a final attack up his sleeve for all of you that you probably won't see coming. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Donald is not crazy. He knows what he's doing. Now, bear in mind, Joe Kennedy III, he had a spot at the podium for night one. During a primetime special, mind you. He was there to introduce Elizabeth Warren, but what happened was actually the fact that they didn't really cover him. CBS didn't cover him. They only covered the last few seconds of his speech. That is an insult. And bear in mind, Joe Kennedy III is one of the last people of the Kennedy family to currently be in office. You got Carolyn Kennedy, who is currently the ambassador for Japan, right? U.S. ambassador for Japan. But aside from that, you got Joe Kennedy III. We lost Ted Kennedy and Eunice Kennedy Shriver earlier on back late, I think in 2009. And since then, or was it 2010? I have to double check. Since then, there really aren't a lot of Kennedys really getting any love. So as a result, I would have expected Joe Kennedy III to get some more reception, but I guess that's not the case. What, does he have to run for president just to get some major spotlight? That's sad. I mean that is a bias towards the Kennedy family. What, is it just because we're from Massachusetts? No. You respect every single politician and person at the podium equally, without any kind of majorly negative bias. Next time, CBS, do your job and make sure that Joe Kennedy III gets some public spotlight. He rightfully deserves it. He rightfully deserves his entire speech to be presented more, just as much as anybody else, even if it was a short one. So wishfully, CBS Boston will cover him more by comparison. And then we have Elizabeth Warren. And of course, it was basically just a history lesson. Isn't Elizabeth Warren a professor herself? So I guess it kind of makes sense. I guess it kind of makes sense as to why she would discuss the fact that, yes, there are a lot of successes and faults of the Democratic and Republican Party. She acknowledges and understands that there is a lot of good and wrong with both the donkeys and the elephants. Yes, donkey style and elephant style. I never say donkey style. Actually, no, I take that back. I've been using that for about 5 years locally. This is the first time I've actually had to say it online. Donkey style is not a bad thing. Somebody turn it into a music video. Somebody make donkey style a thing. Please. Please. Do it. But yeah. But what the entire history lesson was in the case of what Elizabeth Warren had basically said, when we wanted a minimum wage increase, when we wanted easier tuition cuts, or even easier spending for our economy and whatnot, the Republicans would always say no. And that's basically the argument that Elizabeth Warren made throughout the entire course of her speech, that the Republicans always said no to thinking outside the box, and that is unfortunately very bad. That is a very bad scenario. This means that the Democrats and the Republicans alike are not in a state where they will compromise. You need an independent or another third party that will actually come to a reasonable compromise and deliver something that works for both parties involved. That is why Bernie Sanders has done so well as a senator and a U.S. representative in the House. Bernie has always been an independent, and the fact that, even though a good amount of the Republicans don't really like some of the views that he's got, they don't hate his guts. They appreciate his honesty, and they appreciate the fact that they can have reasonable compromise. I mean, heck, the fact that he is debatably the utmost trusted and notable politician right in front of John McCain, that tells you something. That just tells you something about the way that we currently view modern politics. That is astounding. That is very, very astounding. Still. I guess that leads us into the main event of this entire thing. The big standing ovation of the Democratic Party's Lord and Savior, Bernie Sanders! I swear that sounds better in person. It does not sound good on microphone. But yes, Bernie Sanders ended up obtaining what was potentially the biggest, the utmost kind, loving, and memorable standing ovation when he walked onto the podium. He thanked his 13 plus million voters for basically voting for him throughout the campaign season. He basically thanked the over 750,000, maybe even more than that, of people that had gone out and done lobbying, as well as phone banking and going door to door, and even internet advertising for that matter. His campaign has an unprecedented 8 million plus individual contributions to the campaign. I don't know how much that totals in money, but with an average of $27 per donation. An average of $27. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And now we have, I think, over 20, 30,000 people running for public office because of Bernie Sanders. Bernie has literally created a political revolution within the Democratic Party, and it will potentially overhaul the party through and through as the years and decades progress. Whether or not he is president. Of course, he started to get some boos when he started to basically say that everybody needs to vote for Hillary Rodham Clinton, but no matter how you viewed his speech, you've got to admit that he has done a lot of, that he basically said a lot of good, not just about his campaign, but also hers. He's got a lot of respect for her. He's known her since, 1991? About 25 years. So obviously, there wouldn't be too much bad blood between them. They're good friends, and they'll probably be out there for each other, whether the fans like it or not. But what Bernie has said, and bear in mind, this is the Bernie-crats' last chance to contest the convention, is if the 1,846 pledged delegates to his name that made it there vote for him. And who knows? Maybe they can lobby some of the super delegates. Maybe they can even lobby some Hillary delegates to make the game even closer. Anything can happen at the roll call during day 2. And we will be seeing that. I'll be awake for it. If everything doesn't go according to plan, then yes, John Keller will have to agree that yes, unifying the Democrats will have been a failure just as it was tonight. And it's more or less because of the corruption of the Democratic establishment and the broken democracy that we currently have. Whether or not everything will go into play is well beyond me. I'd have to say, wait on it. Wait on it for a while. We don't know how things will turn out. Just wait for the end of day 2. You'll see it in the news, and then you'll probably read it from me. You'll probably listen to it from me if you followed this marathon. But either way that I view it, I would say at this point, not nominating Bernie would probably be a major insult to the Democratic Party, if only because, he's the only one with a clean slate here. He's the only one with very favorable views. He's the only one that still beats Donald by massive landslides in polls. Heck, even Fox News and CNN polls all across the board, NBC polls, CBS polls, they want Bernie. They don't want Hillary or Donald. Some want Jill, some want Gary, but mostly everybody wants Bernie, over 70%. Some on Fox News polls, 97%. And counting. And nobody's reporting it. Nobody is reporting it, but I have seen the numbers. I've voted on those polls. I selected Bernie. And the numbers that I got, why aren't they being covered? Is that insanity? Either way, give him hell, delegates. You know your job. Do your job tomorrow. Do it. And that leads us into The Late Show Live, starring Stephen Colbert. So this week's theme, or at least the theme song to open us out, or open us in, was known as Death, Taxes, and Hillary. This was the greatest way to bring us back to 1977, because the way that it looked, the visual style, it looked like we were on an acid trip. An acid trip involving Austin Powers and Schoolhouse Rock. It was so beautiful. I was losing my mind. The look of everything. Oh, it was like I was on drugs. No. Enough Macintosh plus 420 involving my voice. I'll probably make a custom dance for Macintosh plus Lisa Frank 420 later on. Just not right now. Not right now while I'm talking about Bernie Sanders and Stephen Colbert and the rest of the Democratic Party. But yeah, it kind of felt I was on a drug. But drugs are kind of like blood sports. It's like the Hunger Games. No, wait, it's the Hungry for Power Games. Yes, Steve decided to go to the Wells Fargo Arena and induct, or at least begin, the Hungry for Power Games, Democrat edition. And, he actually kind of had a hard time trying to get to the podium. Trying to get to the ducking podium, and it was virtually impossible. The bodyguards were just there. They were like, no, Steve, you can't get up on there. He was able to tackle the podium and get on there with a 360-degree selfie stick. Oh, it was ducking awesome. At the same time, he tried to get in by many means, singing the national anthem, kindly asking the guards, having to, play a bit of cat and mouse with them, even trying to get in with Nancy Pelosi's help while bringing her kids into the show. It was all crazy times at the Wells Fargo Arena, and oh man, if only we could see more of it. But still, that was tonight's episode of The Hungry for Power Games. Tune in tomorrow to see what happens next. Will Bernie Sanders be able to survive? Will Hillary Rodham come out on top? Will the superdelegates be able to understand that this is a very serious issue? And please, choose who you truly believe will actually save this planet. Please, everybody could potentially go insane. Okay, I think that's actually where I need to end this episode. We're already over 100. We're already over an hour and 17 minutes. We're over 77 and a half minutes. But by the time this is edited up, it'll probably be less than that. But either way, day 2 is going to be crazy. Day 2 will be a crazy time. Get ready for the showdown. It's go time. It's showtime in Pennsylvania. Let's get saved by the broken bell. The cracked broken bell. Come on, Bernie Kratz. You know what you're doing. Come on, super delegates. You know what you're doing. Everybody's anus needs some saving. This is our time to shine. Either way, I've actually got some other stuff I gotta get to. I actually gotta go to bed. I'm ducking tired. What time are we at? Could we please check the time? Oh, 2:32. Oh, duck. Oh, man. This is probably gonna take a while. I don't know when this is gonna be uploaded. I better also check the schedule for who will be speaking tomorrow. I hope they have it available. Okay, we really don't know exactly who will be exactly speaking because it's still a good amount of people that is still out of place. But what is currently scheduled for tomorrow in the theme, A Lifetime of Fighting for Children and Families, you're going to see Donna Brazil, Democratic National Committee Vice Chair of Voter Registration and Participation and future interim chair of the Democratic National Committee, effective at the end of the convention. You'll also have former state senator Jason Carter of Georgia. You'll have Bill Clinton as a headliner. Yes, Bill Clinton. Wishfully, he'll be playing some basketball, doing some dunks. I don't know, 40 feet up in the air, breaking the glass. Maybe playing the saxophone while at it. And then, of course, the mothers of the movement. You know, mothers of children that were murdered by gun violence. So, you know, you're probably going to have, like, you know, you're going to have, like, the mother of Trayvon Martin and a whole bunch of other people. Maybe even those from, like, the Sandy Hook incident. And, I don't know, maybe even Martin Richards' mother for all we know. But a whole bunch of other things. A whole bunch of other people. But, of course, there's going to be a lot of other politicians there that we don't know who will be talking yet. But it'll be a fun time for all. Fun time for all. So, with that said, I'm pretty much done here. Yeah, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. So, yeah, by the time this is edited up, though, it'll probably be less than that. Because, of course, I have to speed up the pitch and tempo by about 4.1% so that it is capable of reading me at a proper pitch and tempo. Or at least in the way I sound normally. That's at least the way it sounds, right? Or it feels. Either way, see you for day 2. This is going to be a fun day. Very, very fun day. Stay tuned. Have fun. Enjoy. I'm out.